The purpose of this video is to provide you with some additional guidance related to providing feedback during in-class exercises. One of the things that you'll recognize in learning counseling skills, if you haven't already, is that feedback is really an important part of the process. You'll receive some summative feedback on your skills during the midterm and the final skills demonstration. Um, as you go through the semester, however, you'll be receiving a lot of the feedback during in-class exercises. You'll receive feedback from peers, and then you'll receive feedback from me at a group level. So I thought it would be beneficial to focus in on this feedback issue a little bit more. So let's talk about some ways in which you can effectively deliver feedback. So this is when you are in the role of observer or even client and you're providing feedback to the helper. So the most important thing is to be specific. Instead of saying you did good, being able to clarify that. When you used open questions that seemed to really draw out the client, or when you used an open body position, it seems like the client's body language changed, which was a positive. So being able to be specific. Now, the second bullet point there, deliver feedback as quickly as possible after the event. So it's very helpful to be able to talk about feedback right after the role play happened. I usually try to give you time in class to do that. So definitely let me know if you don't have enough time. The reason for that is because it's going to have more of an effect on us, if more of a lasting effect on us, if we're able to kind of connect to something we just did. For example, the opposite of that would be, let's say you submitted a paper and you didn't get feedback on it until next spring. We're really not likely to have the attitude that we want to change anything if it seems ancient history. The other thing to think about when delivering feedback is to make sure to talk directly to the person who you're talking about. One of the things that I think can happen is you may kind of turn to another group member and say, and kind of start talking about this helper in front of the group member that needed the feedback directly. So being more direct in providing that directly to the person who it's geared towards can be more impactful. When you're delivering feedback, be sure that you are taking ownership of the fact that this is your opinion, and this is your opinion based on, the rubric, based on the feedback form, based on what we're learning in class, but it is your opinion. So make sure you're using statements like I noticed, or my impression was, and instead of you need to do this, or you need to modify your skills in this way. So I noticed, so for example, I noticed that when you started talking about the informed consent, I noticed that you looked at your notes a lot, and that you and as a result of that didn't make an eye contact with me. The impact that had on me was that I didn't feel as engaged. So instead of saying you need to look at me more than you need to look at your notes, you're telling it from your perspective, which is all you can do. Also, really critical is to make sure to address behaviors that can be changed, and don't focus on things in which the client has, or the helper has no control. So, for example, I've had individuals, worked with individuals at the graduate level and undergraduate level that have had issues with fluency. So maybe they've self-identified as someone who stutters, and that isn't a trait that we can change as far as this course goes. That's not something we're going to focus on. So we want to make sure to only address the characteristics or traits that can be changed. Okay? So that's how to deliver feedback. So some things to keep in mind there. Let's go ahead and go to the process of receiving feedback. The process of receiving feedback, in order for it to be most effective, we need to listen to what is being told to us. What I see a lot of times with feedback is the sender of the feedback, the person giving the feedback, doesn't get a chance to fully explain their ideas before the person receiving the feedback tries to insert an explanation or an excuse for kind of what happened. So make sure to listen and have a non-defensive perspective. Take on a non-defensive attitude when receiving feedback. So truly try to accept the feedback. You might not necessarily agree with every single word, and that's okay. But try to come at it from a non-defensive way. Take the time to hear them out, and then you can kind of reflect on if you agree or disagree at a later date. And if you are getting conflicting feedback, so let's say one group member really thinks the way you are handling paraphrases is really effective, and another group member says, oh gosh, I don't think that's working very well. Please come to me and get some clarification on that so we can figure it out. The third bullet point goes along with what I just said. Recognize that the speaker has the right to his or her perceptions. And again, you may or may not agree. Definitely listen, ask for clarification. If you do get vague feedback from a group member, ask for additional examples, or if they give you sort of a global statement of you did really good at that during that role play, ask what made it good. What did, in your opinion, what made it good and not something else? Definitely take the time, maybe not during the class activity, but maybe take your feedback sheet home, reflect on it, and really think about what you can do to incorporate the feedback if it's accurate feedback. Record to incorporate the feedback that has been given. And it's, a lot of times you've maybe heard the saying in different settings, it's not necessarily about the experience that you have that helps you grow. It's about reflecting on that experience and kind of choosing to infuse that into future behavior. So that's really important. And then lastly is conveying a genuine interest in receiving feedback and in making the appropriate changes. So making sure that you are approaching this in a way that is truly aimed at getting better and being the best that you can be for your future clients. So again, the purpose of this was to review some ways in which we can send and receive feedback as related to counseling skills and helping skills in this course. I have posted the guidelines for feedback form on Blackboard if you go under the content section, so you can find a copy of what I have projected up here on the screen. If you have any questions about feedback, feel free to approach.